Hi, welcome to the Gamesplainer. I'm Jeff the Gamesplainer and today I'm Gamesplaining Clinic. So Clinic is a relatively massive game. There's a lot going on. There looks like a lot on the table. The very first thing that will need to be decided is which of these bonuses they get. So the person who's going second or last, I've set up as a two-player game by the way. So the blue player, which is this one, will choose first and he will choose that, which basically means that his white doctor becomes a yellow doctor. Then the other player will choose one and he will take a nurse, which comes down here, and that nurse will have a car as well. Okay, this is how the game is set up. Those tiles that I just chose from, there are 7 of them. You will have a choice of the number of players plus 1, so that the last person still has a choice. Okay, let's get into this Gamesplanation. In this video, I'm just going to deal with the first part of the game. I will do a second video which deals with the business and admin sections of the game once those parts have taken place. And what this game is trying to do is run a hospital. The first action is the building action. When you take that action, you'll get to build 2 portions of your hospital, and I'll go into those in a moment. In your hospital, you have doctors who will come out of the university. You also have a doctor to start with. You have nurses and you have orderlies, all of which have a price pointing to them. So the orderlies are always $1. The nurses, it depends how many of them have been purchased. So the first nurse will be $1. Once someone has taken that nurse, the next one is worth $2. So there is benefit to doing that early. And the third action is the patients, in which you'll be able to get patients into your hospital to treat, and that is where you're going to get the money. You will need money because you do need to pay for your doctors and the size of your hospital and all that other stuff at the end of the round. The game lasts for 7 rounds total, which is tracked by this. Within each round you will do 3 actions, which is tracked by this, and new patients will come in after each action, or at least the ability to have new patients will come in after each action. Other things to remember is that whenever a person comes to your hospital, so whether that is a doctor, a nurse, an orderly, or a patient, they come with a car. That car will need to be parked somewhere on your board, and if your car happens to be parked there, you cannot build another portion of your hospital in this spot or this spot. So you'll notice the cars are parked further away at the moment. The other thing to remember is when we're talking about adjacent, because the setup of your hospital is vastly important in this game. Adjacent means next to, so these 2 are both adjacent to that one, but not diagonal, so these 2 are not adjacent to each other. Adjacent also is talking in the 3rd dimension, so this level just here is above this level here. You'll notice there are some tiles over there. They come in and can build up higher in your hospitals. In order for you to build on any of those levels, they must be directly above the levels below, so you couldn't go and place a area just there. That one would need to be placed there, there, or there, because that is directly above what is already there. So quite often you'll be asked to place things adjacent to other things. For example, these rooms would need to be placed next to, on the same level as these rooms. These rooms need to be placed adjacent to these, but if this one happened to be placed in the level above, that is also okay. In fact, this room can't work unless it has one of these adjacent to it. So your placement on those rooms is really important. What that also means is that in future turns, if I add one of these there, I could then add one of these directly above that. All 3 of these will be going off that same room and connected to that same room. This room, however, would need to be connected to one of these services, so I can put that there. What I would not be able to do is place that here, because each time you place a room in on a horizontal, you need to make sure you're not placing it above the exact same type of room. So this one is placed above this one, which is not okay. This one placed there is okay. This one is above the pink at the moment, so that also is okay. The other thing to bear in mind is the specialty modules. So these ones, there is a limited number of these. You will have noticed that the service hubs, the next one down was turned face down. That means that within a round, so 3 turns, each of those will only be able to be built once by any players at the table. Same with these ones. If there were more than 2 players, there would be a second one underneath, but it would be face down as well. So it can only be built once by each player, and each player is only able to actually build one specialty module per round, so per all 3 actions. So the way this game plays, you have to start with 3 different tiles, 2 copies of each. You're going to play one of those tiles. Everyone will do this at the same time. You place it face down. Once everyone has placed their tile face down, they're flipped over. And this actually tells you not only what you're doing, but the order in which it's going to happen. So anyone who has this module, which is the building, will go first. Anyone who has this one will go second. Anyone who has that one, which is getting the patients in, will go third. If more than one player have the same module out, then we come back to this for turn order. So if you are building, you will get to build 2 modules or 2 elements into your hospital. These elements just here, these 4, will be built in your buildings. These elements will be built outside of your buildings. There is extra points at the end of the game if you have more than one building. So if, for example, I chose to build the cardiac specialty service hub, I cannot place it there because the rules with these specialty hubs or service hubs is that you can only have one in each building per level. If I place it there, however, that is perfectly okay. I could not build this here because there are cars parked there. You can't just move cars around. You actually have to leave them once they've been parked. I could build it just there. I could then build that there. So that is a treatment room for the heart space, but that's not working until I put a supply room with it. Whenever you build a treatment room, you have the ability to also build a supply room with it. So in essence, you can actually build 3 things if one of them is a treatment room. You are going to have to pay for each thing. Each thing's cost is just here. So on the lower level, that supply room was free. I would have had to pay 2 money for that room and 2 money for that room. So 4 money coming out. I am now not able to build to join these 2 buildings together. They are separate buildings at the moment because diagonal doesn't count. If I wanted to put that in there, I can't do that because then I would have 2 service hubs on the same level of the same building. So I'd have to keep them as separate buildings. I'll talk about what those rooms are for in a moment. Let's just keep moving through the building. Special module. So I can build one of these. I can only build one of these per round. I could have built a second one of these in this round if I wished, or in a future portion of this round. There are 2 more turns, remember. I can build them again. I can only build one of these in an entire round. So the 3 elements, I can only do that once. What these do is they give you a bonus. So if I have this one built in, it means that my movement around the hospital every turn will take 3 less time. If I have this one built in, I can upskill my doctors. I'll talk all about upskilling and what that means in a moment. So just hang on to that thought. If I have this one, I can treat any patient with any doctor for 6 money income. Notice there's different levels of income for different coloured patients over there. And this one will cost me more to actually use it, but I can use this as a single treatment room, kind of like these, but only with 1 patient, 1 doctor. These can hold up to 2 patients and 2 doctors each, but I have the inbuilt bonus of a nurse in this room. And that's going to cost an extra little bit when and if I use that. That's all of the actual rooms of the hospital. We then have this outside stuff. We have gardens. So if I build a garden just here, that's fine. What a garden does is it adds 2 money to a patient being treated in the treatment room next to the garden. So this room here, if I treat a patient here, it will get 2 more money. This one is not next to the garden. The other thing to be aware of is with the garden, I can park next to it. I can't build next to any of these other building rooms, but with the garden I can build next to that. You can put more entrances in These all cost 2 money, by the way, which is just listed down here. So I could put an entrance over there. And what that means is when I'm bringing people into my hospital, I can come in from either entrance, and it makes it less time consuming to move them around the hospital. I'll get to that later, but remember, we're all about the time when it comes down to it. We have parking areas. So once again, just like gardens, parking areas can be built there, or probably a better one to build would be there. And when I build a parking area, I can move 2 cars across. This is the only way you can move cars once they've been placed. But with that parking area, I can also park cars on the side, on that side, on that side. I can't do on this side because there is building in the way. And the other one is helicopters. Now, I believe that helicopters cannot go on ground level. They would need to go up a level. Once a helicopter pad has been placed, you cannot build above it because obviously that's where the helicopter comes from. But what that then gives is entrance into here, here, or here. So anywhere surrounding it. I could put it over here if I wished, and that would do the same thing. Here, here, or here would be the entrance points. But remember, I cannot then build above that helicopter pad. The one other thing that I have not spoken about yet are the conveyors. When you build a conveyor, you place it anywhere in your hospital. You also place a second conveyor because the conveyor needs to go from somewhere to somewhere. The conveyor needs to be in a straight line from where you've placed. So I could either place it here, here, or here. So I might go there. What that now means is, in terms of moving around the hospital, to go from one area to another, a doctor would normally, or a nurse or patient would normally have to pay to make the movement. If this doctor was here, he wouldn't have to pay time to get to there. So it's a really quick way to get between the buildings. And the more of them you build, the easier it is for doctors to move around. So that's all of the building stuff. Remember, you get to build 2 things when that has been placed. Let's move on to doctors and staff, as it were. This is a university. This is where you're going to get your doctors from. This player may decide to hire this doctor. He can put them on one of the entrances. It doesn't matter which one. You can change your mind at a later stage. It's okay. That's cost him 4 money to do that. Whenever you hire a doctor, he comes with a car which will need to be parked. Remember, you can't build where there's parked cars. You then have the choice of hiring either a nurse or an orderly. So right at the moment, he might go, oh, I think I'll get an orderly. So once again, that'll cost him $1 for the orderly. And the orderly also has a car. And that's pretty much it. If he wished to hire another nurse, he would need to do that action a second time. So he's hiring a doctor and a second nurse. The third action that is available to you is the patient action. With the patient actions, you have what are referred to as QP or Q points, which is basically saying you have 1 QP plus 1 for each entrance. So this player at the moment would actually have 3 QP. What do you use them for? I'm glad you asked. You can use a QP to change the level at which a patient is. So notice I've moved the yellow from here to here. He was replaced with the white. That would have cost me 1 QP. Or it cost me 1 to actually take a patient in. So what I've now done is I've taken a single patient in to the head. I will have to apologise for not using the correct words. I do apologise for that. I'm not a doctor. I just forget words very quickly, so please forgive. So that's 1 QP used. He has 3 total. He could take this patient into the heart area, and if he really wished, he could use his 3rd QP to take that guy into the eye area. Even though he doesn't have an eye specialty, he might choose to do that. Or he could choose to move that patient up into one of the other areas. Now he's only got 3, so he wouldn't then be able to take it. If he had a 4th one, then he'd be able to take that and put it onto the heart spot. Let's say, for example, he doesn't do that. He'll just leave it there. This hospital has taken 2 patients in, so he would also need to pull in 2 cars. I might put those 2 cars there. and there. So every time a patient comes into this list, a car goes into the hospital area. So you're going to get to do one of those things in the turn. At the end of each turn, we go to the bag with the cubes and draw out one more cube for each specialty area. And then do it all again. Draw out another cube for each specialty area, do it again, draw out another cube for each specialty area. So let's just imagine that he did actually end up taking this one into the eye hospital. He can't deal with him at the moment, but we'll put him there for the moment, just so we can get a run on of what's happening. The very next thing is movement, and movement is going to cost time. Everyone can do this at the same time. If this is a first play for any people at the table, then by all means do it in turn, but do all of the movement. You cannot leave doctors out on the sidewalk. What he will need to do, what you're trying to do, is get patients and doctors into these treatment rooms. So he can move from here into there, costs 1 time. From anywhere to the entrance, nothing. But from there to there is 1 time. Because there's a conveyor, he can just use that conveyor. He hasn't had to use any more time. So that's 1. He can move a white patient from the headspace into there, that's 2, and use the same conveyor, so we've got that over there. Next, we can move this doctor into here, which is 1, this doctor to here, which will be 2, of course there's no conveyor there. We need to do the same with the patient, so that's another 2. So we're at 6 total at the moment. This guy needs to get to one of those areas, so if he goes 1, 2, and then because there's conveyors between there, it's just another 2, so we're at 8. And this nurse isn't actually needed anywhere. I'll talk about what they are there for in a moment, but she's not needed anywhere, so she just needs to come in, which costs 9. And so you track that around the outside of the board. So that's pushed up to 9. What that means is he's going to lose 3 points at the end of the game. If they happen to have that room in their hospital, that would have only cost 6 points rather than the full 9. Okay, as you can see, I have moved white to a white patient, yellow to a yellow patient. If this doctor happened to be an orange doctor, I would need to have a nurse in that spot to make him able to deal with the yellow patient. So the color of the patient is dealing with how sick they are. White is not sick by much. Red is almost dead. So it goes white, yellow, orange, red. And then you have the same colored doctors. To each doctor, they can deal with a patient of the same color. But for every step outside of that, up or down, they would need a nurse to help them out. So an orange doctor can deal with a yellow patient if they have a nurse. If that was a red cube, that would be fine as well. If it was a white cube, they would need to have a second nurse in the room with them. And that's where the color of the doctors and the patients becomes really, really important to understand. Okay, I think that's enough information for the first part of the game. Please go on to the next video to see what happens on the business and admin sections of this game, or portions of this game, and to follow up. If you have any comments or suggestions, please write them below. If you have any games that you would like to be gamesplained, please shoot me an email to thegamesplainer@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter @thegamesplainer to keep up to date with the games I'm playing. Subscribe to my videos to keep up to date with the games that I'm gamesplaining. And until next time, enjoy gaming.